Currently, the Baltimore Ravens have a top scoring defense in the NFL. Lamar Jackson has been here before. In 2018, he took over the Baltimore Ravens after their Week 9 bye and rolled the top scoring defense into the playoffs, just to be embarrassed by the Chargers. In 2019, the Ravens had a top 3 ranked defense, but lost in the divisional round. In 2020, they were ranked top 2, and you guessed it, they lost again. Lamar Jackson has improved every year in the playoffs, but as an elite talent, he cannot escape the black spot on his resume, his playoff record. Now, this is a rightful argument against Lamar Jackson, a player with immense talent who is yet to show out on the biggest stage despite making major improvements. Or is it? The Lamar Jackson playoff narrative can be quite misleading because in totality it looks awful, especially just looking at the stats. However, a closer look paints a drastically different picture. When Lamar Jackson took over the Baltimore Ravens in 2018, the team was in shambles. Since 2015, the team had a record of 22-26 with no playoff appearances in that time. Talks were heightening about the long-term future of John Harbaugh as the team was 4-5 halfway through the NFL season when quarterback Joe Flacco sustained an injury and Jackson's name was called. Immediately, Jackson's presence changed the fortune of the Ravens' offense and team. They started winning. The passing numbers went down slightly, but the rushing numbers drastically improved, as well as the team's time of possession. The Ravens' defense was already good before, but since when has an extra 5 minutes of rest for pass rushers ever been a problem? The Ravens would go on to win 6 of their final 7 games, and their only loss was a nail-biter to Kansas City when Mahomes was putting up NCAA 14 Road to Glory numbers. To start the wildcard game, the offensive line struggled, the receivers struggled to create separation, and Lamar Jackson looked flustered and overwhelmed. Jackson was throwing to Willie Snead, John Brown, and 31-year-old Michael Crabtree, whose battles with Aqib Talib left them looking at least 40 years old at this point. The Ravens' offense was flightless for most of the game. While Jackson wasn't a prolific passer during the regular season, averaging just a smidge over 22 attempts per game, to start the wildcard, it was run, run, run. It seemed as though John Harbaugh and the coaching staff didn't trust Lamar Jackson to put the ball in the air. But in reality, the Chargers installed a specific package that included 7 defensive backs to slow down Jackson, daring the Ravens to run the ball against the lighter personnel. And the Ravens could not run it. On Baltimore's first drive of the game, Jackson fumbled, seemingly without being touched, and he bobbled an on-target snap on his next play, but both were luckily recovered by the team. He also tossed an interception when a pass went high off the hands of the leaping receiver Chris Moore and into the arms of Chargers safety Adrian Phillips. Through 3 quarters, the Ravens had 3 fumbles, 3 completions, 3 first downs, and 83 yards on offense. What made this particularly jarring was the fact that the Ravens' defense was playing lights out all game. Now, with 13 minutes left in the game, Jackson had 25 yards in the air to 27 yards lost on 5 sacks for -2 net passing yards, while the crowd was calling for Joe Flacco. Now, the fourth quarter was a different story. Maybe the defense was playing softer to prevent big plays, but the Ravens started to take a little bit of flight. Jackson threw for 176 yards and 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter and had the Ravens driving down to win the game before he was stripped for his 3rd fumble of the day, this time losing the ball and the game. Jackson finished 14 of 29 for 194 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a 78.8 passer rating, along with 54 yards on the ground. He finished the game with more passing yards than Phillip Rivers, whatever that means. 2019 is still fresh in the minds of many Ravens fans. It's the year Jackson put on his masterpiece, his magnum opus, and thus far the peak of dual-threat quarterbacking, on his way to unanimous MVP and the number 1 seed. What makes it even more impressive is the receivers he was throwing the ball to, which included rookie tight end Mark Andrews, Seth Roberts, Willie Snead, Chris Moore, and rookie Marquise Brown. Not exactly world class. Anyways, this playoff game in the divisional round was defined by the mistakes that others made more than Jackson playing below his usual standards. They lost because the entire team played below its usual standards, especially the defense. Jackson carried or passed the ball on 83 plays against the Titans. the most touches for one player in a playoff game in NFL history. He did so because the Ravens knew that he was their best shot at making something happen, something positive happen. The Ravens had plenty of opportunities in the first half, but when the Titans weren't stopping them, they were stopping themselves. On the Ravens' first possession of the game, they drove into Tennessee's territory and promptly turned the ball over. Jackson was picked off when his pass went off the hands of tight end Mark Andrews. Yeah, it was definitely a high pass, so the issue here is on Jackson for the bad throw. When the game was still close in the first half, his receivers continued to drop the ball. Wide receiver Seth Roberts had 2 drops on the day, one a surefire first down and the other one a potential touchdown. Andrews, Willie Snead, and Hayden Hurst also had butterfingers all game. In total, the Ravens had 7 drops. Then there's the running game, which was crippled by an injury to Mark Ingram. He only had 6 carries on the night and could be seen on the sideline getting his calf examined by the training staff. The Ravens defense, meanwhile, had no answers for Derrick Henry, who had 195 yards on the ground. Heck, he even threw for a passing touchdown. The defense allowed plays of 65 and 45 yards, and quarterback Ryan Tannehill also threw for a pair of touchdowns, including one in which the Baltimore Ravens secondary broke down. The Titans never had to settle for a field goal, scoring on all 3 times they moved into the red zone. This was Tennessee's day, and it seemed like everything was going their way. Now, Lamar Jackson did struggle some. He had 3 turnovers, which was uncharacteristic since he only had 8 all season. But he struggled the same way that Josh Allen has a turnover problem. He was trying to do everything when no one else could do anything. Jackson finished the game with 31 completions for 365 yards and a touchdown, and another 143 yards on the ground. Now, that's 508 yards of offense, making it the first time any player has totaled 300 yards passing and 100 yards on the ground in a single postseason game. For the second straight season, Baltimore dog-walked the NFL with their rushing attack, nearly 400 yards above the second-place rushing offense, the Tennessee Titans. However, this did not come without the complete and total lack of passing success. The Ravens' passing attack ranked dead last in a year where Adam Gase was still the head coach. The Ravens' front office believed in their defense. They spent big money and draft capitals in acquiring the best players, including Calais Campbell and Yannick Ngakoue. DeCosta had admitted that the team constructed their defense to deal with Derrick Henry. However, on offense, there were gaps left in the wide receiver department and interior offensive line. That's not to say they didn't try, because they drafted multiple receivers and offensive linemen, but the theme of this team was defense. Baltimore spent the 3rd most of any team on defense, allocating $105 million to that side of the ball. On offense, they placed 31st in spending with only $56 million. Luckily for the Baltimore Ravens, this would not haunt them, at least not in the wildcard round. Now, at this point in the NFL, the Ravens and Titans were becoming a bubbling rivalry again, like they were in the early 2000s. But this time, the Titans were the one on the winning side, at least consistently. The Titans took a 10-0 lead by outgaining Baltimore 126-36 in the first quarter, with Lamar Jackson throwing an awful interception. It looked like he was trying to give his receiver a chance to make the play, but the throw was just bad. Baltimore's defense, the second stingiest scoring unit in the NFL, took over. The Ravens held Tennessee to -7 yards in the second quarter, the 3rd fewest in any quarter of a playoff game since 2000. Tennessee's offense tied for 4th, averaging 30.7 points a game, and had more offensive yards per game during the season than any other team not named Kansas City. In this game, they were held to 209 yards. It seemed like everything the Titans did, the Ravens had an answer for. The team played to their standards on both sides of the ball. Lamar Jackson ran for 136 yards and a touchdown while throwing for 179 more for the Ravens to rally from a 10-point deficit to beat the Tennessee Titans. With Jackson's 136 yards, he joined Kaepernick as the only quarterback in postseason history to rush for 100. One thing to mention with this win, though, the Ravens snapped a string of 21 straight games lost by the franchise in either the regular season or playoffs when trailing by 10 or more. In the divisional round, Lamar Jackson was 14 of 24 for 162 passing yards, one fumble that was recovered by the Ravens, and a back-breaking interception in the red zone that was returned for a touchdown. On the ground, Jackson rushed 9 times for 32 yards as the Ravens lost 17-3. Lamar Jackson did not play well. He missed some throws, made some bad decisions, and seemed uncomfortable all game long. Now, credit has to be given to the Bills' defense because they were partially to blame for the Ravens' collapse. Buffalo's defense cut off Lamar Jackson's running lanes, covered his targets, and sent a stream of blitzes, making him uncomfortable all game long. Now, if you let them tell it, this was the entire story. No, there's more to this loss. First, the weather was not great. The wind chill coupled with the brief snow shower made it difficult to pass the ball for both teams. So you would think this would benefit the Baltimore Ravens as they were the number 1 ranked rushing offense. Well, that's not the kind of night this was. Justin Tucker, who had never missed a field goal attempt from inside the 50-yard line in the postseason, missed 2. Lamar Jackson, who had never thrown an interception in the red zone, threw 1 that turned into a back-breaking pick 6 like I mentioned earlier. Additionally, the lack of passing offense finally came to bite the Ravens. Their passing deficiencies extended beyond not having playmakers at the receiver position. Their passing concepts were too rudimentary, their play calling was too predictable, and their offensive line, especially the interior, gave Lamar Jackson no time. One of the remarkable success stories of the Ravens season was witnessing the offensive line come together and dominate down the stretch despite losing Ronnie Stanley to an injury and cycling through multiple starters at various positions. However, the line's strong run came to an abrupt halt in the divisional round against the Buffalo Bills. Jackson was harassed, hit, and with 1 second remaining in the third quarter while down 14 points, Jackson received a bad snap, and while trying to save the play, he sustained a concussion that forced him out of the game. Could the Ravens have orchestrated a comeback in the fourth quarter with Jackson still in the game? Maybe. After all, the defense, despite what the score said, was playing lights out. Lamar Jackson's playoff record isn't great, and neither is his performances in some of the games. He's 1-3 in 4 games, completing 55% of his passes for 900 yards, 3 passing touchdowns, and 5 interceptions. Additionally, he's rushed for 375 yards, and in those 4 games, he only has 1 touchdown. While context is important in understanding his 1-3 record, one should conclude that it shouldn't all be on Jackson based on the information I've provided throughout this video. However, Jackson is at a point in his career where he's shown us through his regular season stats and accolades that he is one of the best quarterbacks in the sport and needs to be judged through the lens of those types of players. He's not the first quarterback to experience this and certainly won't be the last. Therefore, all the fuss made about the playoff record from the misinformed pundits and podcasters, unfortunately, is warranted. So do you think that Jackson will finally get that monkey off his back and lead the Ravens deep into the playoffs? Let me know in the comment section.